In Search of Me Now podcast. I'm your host, Lynette M. Bradshaw, so let's get going. Every day, young girls and women live in fear because of domestic violence. They live in silence and in fear of what their partners may do if they ever tell. Once a year, we highlight this problem, and I believe that's not enough. Being a domestic violence survivor myself, we need to continue the conversation and break the silence of domestic violence. Join me and my panelists on May the 3rd, 2021 at my Facebook page, In Search of Me Now, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Let's break the silence by consistent conversation. I'll see you there. Hey, it's Lynette here, and this segment is Girls Speak Up. That's right, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your aha moments, your ideas about upcoming episodes, or do you have a question you would like me to answer on an upcoming episode? All right, well, all you have to do is go to www.insearchofmenow, leave me a voicemail, leave me a comment, leave me an email, whatever you choose to do, and you may hear your message on an upcoming segment of Girls Speak Up. I'll be waiting for your questions, your comments, your voicemails. Let's go. It's all about you. Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of In Search of Me Now podcast. I'm your host, Lynette M. Bradshaw. If this is your first time listening to me today, I want to say thank you so much. I know that there are so many other podcasts that you could be listening to today, but you chose to listen to this one, and I am truly grateful for that. Each week on this podcast, I'm going to be sharing information with you to help you along the way in your journey, that you can know that it's okay for you to go in search of you on the inside of you. That's right. You don't have to go looking in anyone else. It's all about you. So today I want to share someone with you that's going to help you to understand that you can live after loss, and you can also discover something about you that you may have never known or even thought of before. So her name is Valerie Stancill, and she's my guest today. She's going to share with us how she went from being a wife to a caregiver in 24 hours. Her husband was diagnosed with a rare lung disease and given 2 to 3 weeks to live. Today, she's going to share with you her journey of how she was able to go through this situation and also to discover her purpose on the other side of it. So without further ado, here she is, Miss Valerie Stancill. Hey, Valerie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Lynette, for having me. It is such a joy and a blessed opportunity for me to share my story, because I think that my story will help other women realize that you can live your life again after loss. I just like to say I am a woman who found my purpose in my pain, and realizing that in all of my how comes and what ifs, God had a plan that I just could not see. Like you said, I went from wife to caregiver in 24 hours. It was a Friday in 2000. My husband had to go for a stress test, and, he was back there for a really long time. And I'm like, what's going on? They were like, he had to be immediately admitted to the hospital. Still had no understanding of what was going on, but I knew he had some previous lung issues that were supposedly dormant, and they were thinking they were resurfacing. So it was the weekend, and we didn't get to find out about, anything, because nobody's there on the weekends. Come to find out, they thought that his sarcoidosis had resurfaced. Unbeknownst to me and him, it was a few days later, I was told that he had a rare lung disease called pulmonary arterial hypertension. They told me he needed 2 new lungs, and there was nothing that they could do for him, besides doing this lung transplant. The disease will eventually cause your demise because there is no cure for it. Gave him 2 to 3 years to live. So I am bombarded with all of that, in just a few days. And I had to wrap my head around all of this. I had to show myself strong for him, because my background, I have a degree in science, and I have a degree in health administration. I worked in healthcare for 30 plus years. I worked in trauma, I worked in the OR, and I worked in a vascular lab. So I knew all the things that they were telling me, was harmful,
Yeah.
would cause his demise. So I had to be strong for him because he didn't understand. So we had to go through numerous tests, and every turn it was the worst. His pressure, his pulmonary pressures can't be brought down. He can't do the clinical trial. Now we're going for the lung transplant. By the time it's time for him to have the lung transplant, he'll be too old. If he does get a lung transplant before he's too old, he'll probably never leave the hospital. I had to come home, and I had a nice little talk with God,
Mm-hmm.
and told him what I wanted, because I'm the boss, I tell God what I want. And my husband, part of this disease would be that my husband would pass out at any time,
Mm-hmm.
and he would not be able to be coherent until this syncopal episode was over. And I told God, I said, we're not doing this anymore. He's not going to do that anymore. So he did it again. And I remember standing up. I was, every time I was overwhelmed, I was anxious, I was nervous. And this one time I got up and I said, didn't we talk about this? Didn't I say we're not doing this anymore? And so then I, said what I had to say, and I got back to tend to my husband. He came too. But, this whole entire journey, God just showed himself to be the keeper, the provider, and the healer that he says that he is. My husband lived for 14 years.
Wow.
That 2 to 3 year time span that, man said that he was supposed to live, he lived for 14 years. It was a long journey, and it was a how come, what if I had done this, if I had taken him to this hospital. And all of this was so unbeknownst to me that in this pain there was my purpose. I am so passionate about empowering, equipping, inspiring, and educating women to realize that there is life after loss and you can live again. When you're in that situation, you feel as though you can't, because you've lost your husband, you've lost a job, you've
Mm-hmm.
lost, you've had a divorce, because loss is loss. It doesn't have to be, a death. Loss is loss. And, the outcome of a loss is always depression and
Yes.
grief. So, you deal with that as you deal with it. As to me, it's an individual. It's an individual situation. It's not a what the papers say, what the steps say. It's an individual thing. So God allowed me to see that, as long as I kept my eyes on him, there is life after loss and you can live again.
I think I don't want to say the funny thing because it's not funny,
Mhm.
but when we go through hard times and we get to the other side of it, we gain so much, but we can't see that in the midst of it.
Mm-mm.
And then
Mm-mm.
when you come through that journey, you are really passionate about helping the next person through their journey, their experience, based on what you've come through, because someone who hasn't experienced that may not be able to understand where this person is. And
Exactly.
I know that's where my passion came from, to see women heal their hearts because of my journey, my experience, to be able to let someone know that I see you. You're not
Mhm.
invisible. You've gone through a divorce, you've lost a child. I've gone through those different things. And to help them to understand, when you get to the other side of this, there is strength you will gain, there is purpose you will gain that you may not have gained had you not gone through this. This may be hard right now, but on the other side of it, you're going to gain so much more.
That is so true. Like I said, each day, especially when he would pass out, or I would get another bad report,
Hmm.
I would be like, God, why are you doing this? I wanted, he's retired, I'm retired. It's time for us to be living our lives, not living our lives to get in the car to go to this doctor, to travel this far to go to this doctor. But it was something that I had to do. And like you said, and it's not funny, it is funny. When you look back, I can actually laugh at some of the things that I was questioning God about,
Yeah.
because you see now what God has done. For me, through all of this, I learned who I was, learned my voice, learned my passion. I am the owner of a wellness center. I am an author. I am a speaker. I am a domestic violence advocate, a health and wellness advocate, an educator. So many things came from that pain. But when you're in it, you just cannot see your way out. You think that there is no way out. How? Because my husband did everything. Like if he could, he would think for me. I didn't pay any bills. I didn't do it. I went to work and I came home. All the money I made was mine. So I just did whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to think about anything, how to pay this bill, how to do that. And I remember that day that they told me they were going to take him off the ventilator. I immediately, instead of like, oh my God, my husband's gone, what am I going to do now?
Wow.
He's gone. What am I going to do? I remember calling my sister and saying, can you come here and help me? Because I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Because I never had to do that. So you think that you're stuck and that you won't be able to live again. How am I going to do this without my husband?
Right.
But you can, because God will always, always be there for you. I'm telling you, Lynette, I'm not living like we did before. My husband had a good job. We had like 4 cars. We had a big house, 6-figure income. No, I'm not living like that. But let me tell you something. I have not missed a beat. I have not missed a beat. So all those things that people say, all those cliches about, it's not going to be the same without your husband. No, it's not the same without your husband or your job or whatever capacity of loss that you experience. But God will always, always provide. I have not wanted for one thing. I bought a new car. Of course I sold the house we lived in, but, I got a nice apartment. I still buy things. I live my life. So you can live again. You just have to learn how to trust God.
Yeah, that is the hard part of when you are going through something, is to trust God or to learn to trust Him when you're going through that, because death is a hard thing. And like you were saying, death happens in different ways. The death for me was my baby, who passed 2.5 hours after he was born. And then the next death that really rocked my world was my divorce after 19.5 years. And so even though I wanted the divorce, I came to that place where I was saying, well, God, who am I? I was used to being a mom. I was used to being a wife. And before those titles, I didn't know who I was. So I had to ask him, well, who am I now? So I think it's amazing what you're doing to help women to understand that regardless of what the loss is, you can live again. But I also believe that it's in your choice. It's in your
Yes.
choice to live again and to allow God to pick you up and bring you into the next dimension of your life, whatever that holds. That even though there's been a loss, you are still alive and you still have much to give and you have much to receive. And I believe you told me that that's what you write your books about also, is to help women to be able
Yes.
to live after loss. Tell me about that.
Yes, I've written 2 books. One of my books, of course, is my journey with my husband for 14 years, because I wanted you to see how through it all, our love superseded all of the bad reports, all of the negativity that we had to go through. And, our passion for God and our prayer lifestyle, all of those things, I believe, was the catalyst in him going from this 2 to 3 year, sentence that man gave him to the 14-year extension of his life that God gave him.
Right.
Because my prayer was always, when they would say, Miss Stancill, go home and make these arrangements, I was like, God, please, please don't take my husband. I'm not ready. He never would. But at the time, in 2014, when they took him, God told me he was going to take him. So I was okay with that. But I wrote a book about that because I wanted you to know about my journey. I wanted you to know how angry I was, because it's okay to be angry, because God already knows you're angry.
Exactly.
How his family reacted, how his family treated me, the medical system, navigating through the medical system. book, it has some different doctors in there, so you know different doctors, because a lot of people don't know the different types of doctors they can go to, different types of situations. Not to be afraid to ask these questions, because it's very important that you ask certain questions and to be your mate's advocate, your spouse's advocate, because at the time they're not thinking rationally. So you have to be that advocate. So
Right.
there's some information in here on how to ask different questions, different things about signing consent. A lot of times they'll try and give you a blank consent. That's why it's called informed consent. You need to know what's going to happen if your loved one has this procedure. Some things about insurance companies. A lot of people don't know insurance companies will give you medication or help pay for your medications. And then my latest book is called My Life for Yours, Chronicles of a Caregiver's Unconditional Love. And this
Okay.
is an anthology with 10 other women who were caregivers. If I went through this as a caregiver, I wanted to see what other people went through as a caregiver, and to find out that there were some similarities, but in our caregiving, but each person had a different story. And I think that each story in this book will mirror someone else's story, that, someone else went through as a caregiver. Do you wake up to be a caregiver? Is that a
No.
vow that you take, when you get married, my life for yours? No, it's not, but it's a vow that you take in sickness and in health, to death do us part. And I just wanted, to hear what other women had to say about their loved ones and their journey through caregiving. And some of the stories in here are so heart wrenching. I think everyone, at the time of this book's printing, two people had they were caregivers to people that were alive. So one has since passed, and the other one is still alive. Each story is just, about, their one person's child was born with their brain outside of their head. So she had to carry that child around in her hand, like the brain in one hand and a baby in another hand, and being a caregiver for her ex-husband's mother, who hated her at the time, and learned to love her after that, and someone whose mother despised her as a daughter. She wasn't the daughter that she wanted her to be, but yet she still, found it in her heart to take care of her mother. So, there's a caregiver's prayer in here that I want everyone to be able to read, that's a caregiver. I just wanted to be able to show you that you are recognized, because as a caregiver, you're overworked, you're overwhelmed, underappreciated, because
Yeah.
the person you're caring for is sometimes very angry and very upset. So who are they going to take it out on except you?
Yes, exactly.
So this book is just something that's very close to my heart, and it gives people the ability to hear from someone besides me, to hear a journey of a caregiver.
Because again, people think when they're going through it, they're the only one going through it.
Hmm.
They're the only one feeling what they're feeling. And when you have this book that has a variety of stories from different levels, different aspects, they do hear themselves in that story. They
Hmm.
may connect with this story and not with this story, but they'll know somebody understands how I feel.
Yes. Yes.
And I know when you go through things like that, you're so focused on dealing with the needs of the person you're taking care of. How do you take care of yourself through that process? Because you have emotions, you have the anger, you have the sadness, you need support. What helped you when you were going through that journey to take care of yourself?
Well, that was a whole another story, because I didn't take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because my main focus was my husband. I became very ill because I didn't take care of myself. My vitamin D level was untraceable. So, that caused a lot of joint pain. I was so depressed and not real, so I think sometimes we're so busy, we don't realize we're depressed. And I think that my depression came that day, not the day right after Thanksgiving, when we found that he had to be hospitalized, but that day that we walked into the pulmonologist's office. He never had us change, had my husband change his clothes. We went right to his office. And he told me there was nothing else they could do for him. except a lung transplant, and he had to qualify for that. And I think that's when my depression started, but I didn't see it as depression, because I was too busy, taking care of my husband and not taking care of myself, so fatigued and so worn down and angry. I'm not going to say that I wasn't angry, because I was always questioning God. I was mad at God. For 4 years after my husband passed away, I was a leader in my church. My husband was a leader in church. We attended church faithfully, did everything in church. For 4 years, I was so mad at God. I would go to church because that's what you do on Sunday.
Yeah.
But I would sit there with my arms folded. I would just be so angry. I dare you to come say something to me. The deacons would say, what's wrong with you? Or why are you so angry? You look like you don't want to be here. I don't, and had an attitude with them. I don't want to be here. But, this is what we did, my husband and I. It's just so many different emotions that you go through and trying to deal with all of that and take care of yourself while you're taking care of someone else. You can't. And, from that, I also am very passionate now. I do self-care coaching because that's very, very important. If you're not well, how can you take care of someone else? If you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of someone else? And it's not just, self-care where I'm talking about, getting a mani-pedi, going to get a massage. It's internal. It's an internal love affair with yourself where you're going deep down inside and getting into all of the dimensions of self-care, like the psychological, the spiritual, the emotional, and all the different dimensions of self-care that will allow you to be strong enough and healed enough that you can that you can take care of yourself so that you are able to take care of someone else.
Right. So the anthology that you spoke of, is it already out or is it coming out?
Yes, this book is out. It's called My Life for Yours, Chronicles of a Caregiver's Unconditional Love. And you can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Or you can, of course, get it from me. We make a little more money, like when you get it from us. And I'm working on, several other books. I'm working on another anthology right now. I'm preparing that and finishing another book on domestic violence because after, I finally went out to date again. The first person I date, I unfortunately was a domestic violence abuser. So,
wow.
I'm writing that story because, like I said, women need to be empowered. They need to know the story. You don't need to know my story. You don't need to know what happened to me. You need to know a little bit about what happened to me, but I want you to glean from this what not to do. What to look for, the red flags and the power and the control and the narcissism and the stalking and the difference between physical and emotional domestic violence. I have coined a phrase that God had given me is that I want what I have gone through to help you to get through. I am here to walk this journey with you and to help you get through it. I've been through it.
Yeah.
So I want to help you to get through it. I'm not here to compete with you. I'm here to help complete you. So that's why I am so passionate about life after loss, being able to live again and taking it to the platform of total wellness, total healing within you as a person, as a whole person.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have all of your links and everything on our show page so they can contact you for your books and look at your website and see if there's any other way that you can help them through their journey. But before we leave, I wanted to ask, is there anything that you would say to our listeners, wherever they are in their journey, to help them to be able to find life after loss?
Well, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is that you have to be able to do the work so that you can heal from within. And it's not so much doing what research papers say and what this thing says. Your life is an individual thing. Your journey is an individual process. And my husband and I's favorite scripture was Jeremiah 29:11. And no matter what the situation is, no matter what it looks like, he always has a plan to take you to your purpose. So don't ever negate the fact that you cannot live again after suffering loss. You can live again.
Awesome. Well, Valerie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and your transformation. And I'm excited to see how you're able to help other women experiencing what you've gone through as a caregiver or going through some type of loss in their life. So keep up the great work. And I know that this message is going to help a lot of people.
Thank you for having me.